Anyway, Roto World player news. Let's get stuck into it. David Johnson, gentlemen, a fantasy legend,
Yes.
NFL legend. He's retired from the NFL after 8 seasons. I'm going to take a look at some of DJ's greatest games, his greatest stat lines. There was a time where he was the guy. He was the number one pick in fantasy. Some of his top games, fantasy legend. Week 15 at Philadelphia in 2015, 187 rushing yards, 42 receiving yards, 3 total touchdowns, 44.9 total fantasy points. Has these other 4 games along the journey with north of 34 points. What will you remember, Lawrence, about David Johnson?
I mean, look, solid career for a guy who was 3rd round out of Northern Iowa. First year, you know, he made his money as a returner. He had a lot of return touchdowns. They eventually made him into the lead guy, and obviously that 2016 year was exceptional. You know, that kind of carried him on to making more money down the road. So 8-year career as a running back, man, you don't see it much, so shout out to him.
Yep, his 2016 season was legendary. RB1, over 2,100 yards from scrimmage, 20 touchdowns. Fair season, Denny.
David Johnson was a big win for the nerds. I want everybody to remember that because us nerds were heavy on him coming into the league. He said his metrics popped, his size, his speed, size speed freak. We're in on him. He didn't get much opportunity in his rookie season. When he finally did, as you saw in 2015, he went nuts. 2016 was fantastic. I want to give him a shout out to JJ Zacharyson at Late Round QB for being an early adopter on David Johnson way back in the day.
Okay, and Matthew, I believe we have a photo of you with David Johnson. Let's spot the NFL running back if we can. Wow, Matthew looking
Both of them looking
pretty fierce,
swole
man.
up.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
Straight out of options.
Is that Craig Reynolds?
That's right.
That's unbelievable. Matthew, some thoughts on David Johnson, his career?
You know, just the fact that, like, again, that he was not for the longest time, but he was a fantasy superstar. I got to know him a little bit, you know, so you saw that picture there. In addition to just being a really nice person, he also really embraced fantasy football at a time in 2016 where a lot of players still weren't embracing fantasy football the way they do. So David really enjoyed his role as being, you know, one of the superstars of the game, which I always thought was great. You know, 2017 was tough. I just remember, you know, it's rare that somebody that goes that high. He was so universally picked in 2017, and then that injury-plagued season was just so tough. But David Johnson was, you know, a fantasy superstar and somebody who embraced the community, you know, in a way that maybe not to the extent that Eckler does, but, you know, he certainly was an early adopter, if you will. And so, anyway, just as somebody who knew him, or knows him, I should say, he's not dead. I would just say as somebody who knows him a little bit, you know, he's just an awesome person. He had an awesome career. He's a fantasy football legend, and much respect, as David calls it, a career.
Yep. Congratulations, DJ, on a great career. All right, last news item before we get out of here. The Vikings have signed Robert Tonyan, formerly of the Bears, TJ Hockenson, who's obviously coming off severe knee injury. He said that hasn't really put a timeline on his return from last year's season-ending knee injury, so I don't really have clarity, Denny. Do you think that Robert Tonyan could be viable in the early part of the season?
I mean, I think it's probably a sign that Hockenson is not going to start the season, you know, healthy or even close to it. It might be, you know, maybe a month or two into the season before we see him get a full share of snaps and routes. I do think, look, I know this sounds funny, but I do think we have to keep an eye on Johnny Munt, okay? Because Johnny Munt stepped in and did a good job and was kind of fun for fantasy once Hockenson went out last year. Tonyan, I don't know. You know, he's never recovered from a horrific knee injury he had 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe he has in the meantime. We'll see. But I'm not super excited about Tonyan. I think this just means that we have to be very careful with how we treat TJ Hockenson, especially in best ball drafts. You think you're getting a deal on his ADP, you're probably going to have to see him drop a little more.
Okay. Lawrence, what do you think about Tonyan?
Yeah, I mean, Hockenson, he had that injury late in the season, so this comes as no surprise. That's a hard injury to come back from. Robert Tonyan here, if anything, it would be we were talking about best ball today, so if anything, Tonyan will be a guy you would scoop up in best ball, and you could get him damn near at the end of the draft. Nobody's really checking for that as of today. But other than that, I would just feel like that's, more for Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, as if wasn't going to be already. But really nothing to see here. But if it's a best ball flyer on Robert Tonyan, I'm definitely not saying we're definitely not treating him like Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, where if one guy goes down, like that's an auto start. No, we're definitely not saying that. But just a deep stash guy in your best ball.
Yep. Matthew, I think this news probably signals more for TJ Hockenson and where he's going to get drafted and his prospects this season than anything specific to Tonyan or Denny's man, Johnny Munn.
Johnny Munn.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Lawrence mentioned it, right? This is a guy who suffered the torn ACL and MCL in week 16, so you figure a typical 9 to 11-month recovery brings him back around midseason. It's just more of another indication that TJ Hockenson very likely will not be probably starts the season on the physical unable to perform list there as well. I like the fact that, though, he's played for the Bears, he's played for the Packers, now he goes to the Vikings. He needs to retire as a Lion.
Absolutely.
And just basically never leave the division. That's what Bob Tonyan should do. I like that. I like a guy that says, screw it. I'm just staying in the division.
Rob Tonyan is a guy who once had 11 touchdowns in the season.
Yeah.
That's long ago with Aaron Rodgers.
That'll be a useful piece of trivia in the year 2046.
Yes.
All right, last thing from us. You got a sneak peek of it before, but the sandwich board, in terms of who drinks free, it is the fans who drink free, because this is our last show for the season for a while. We will be back. Next year, but this is our last one for a while. So thank you so much to the fans. As Matthew stands up, showing shirt. It says Paris. Matthew, anything that you want to say as we sign off?
Yeah, that's right. Because we, and by we I mean NBC, not us, not the four of us, but NBC is going to Paris for the Olympics coming up soon, and obviously the Indy 500 on NBC as well on Memorial Day weekend. So we are going to take a little bit of a break, but we will be back. I can't thank Jay, you, Lawrence, Denny, Connor, who's not there, producer Steven, producer Damian, backup producer Pete, our producer Adam as well, Penn State Blake, who's no longer with us, the entire Fantasy Football Happy Hour crew behind the scenes. We have great directors, producers, camera people, way too long of a list to mention, but it's been an awesome season. Hope everyone enjoys their off season. Hope everyone watches the Indy 500 and the Olympics on NBC, checks out all of Denny's stuff on Roto-World, goes to Bet the Edge to listen to, Drew Dinsick. Ignore all the stuff Jay gives you, but listen to Jay. We're excited to get Connor back with his new wife, Kristen. So that's all. Just love you guys and appreciate it, and hope everyone has a great summer.
Yep. And to clarify, Penn State Blake, he is no longer with us, but like David Johnson, he is very much alive and thriving. So best wishes to him. But we are done for now. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. From Jay, Denny, Lawrence, Matthew, congratulations again to Connor and Kristen. We'll be back in a couple of months. Peace out.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.